Recently, an ASRock Phantom Gaming Arc A770 8GB hit a super low price, and we picked one up to compare it to a couple of other GPUs in that price range. So if you had less than $280, which GPU would you pick? Red, green, or blue? Let's test them out. Now, sales on GPUs are becoming pretty common, and the low end isn't an exception. So even though this specific model of the A770 isn't $270 anymore, I'm sure that it's not the last time that we'll see it that low. And if you happen to have $280 burning a hole in your pocket and you found some great deals, this head-to-head should help. There are three specific graphics cards that we'll be looking at today. Starting off with Intel, we have the Arc A770 Phantom Gaming D 8GB OC, which was available for $270 when we bought it, but is normally $320 and comes with a 2-game bundle. On the AMD side, we have the MSI Radeon RX 6650 XT Mech 2X 8GB OC edition that has been off and on sale for $280, but is normally $295. But guess what? It also comes with a free game. And finally, you have one of the cheapest Nvidia GPUs we could find, the Zotac Gaming GeForce RTX 3050 Twin Edge OC 8GB, which was picked up at the $270 mark. No free games with this one, so you get just the card. For this video, Adam and I are tag teaming it. Adam ran all of the benchmarks on the GPUs and we collaborated on the games, testing methods, and the results. So everything in this piece is a combination of our efforts together to bring you the results and an opinion on this matter. He ran all of the tests on his small form factor gaming rig featuring an Intel Core i9-13900, 32GB of DDR5 at 5600 megatransfers per second, and an SK Hynix Platinum P41 Gen 4 NVMe SSD. For resolution, we actually focused on 1440p to put these cards under a more strenuous load, and to show things like VRAM limitations. Some games even featured ray tracing, but most did not. We were kind of surprised by how well some of these cards held up though. So let's get on to those results. So we're going to kick things off with Cyberpunk 2077, which was tested using the Ultra preset with no ray tracing and no upscaling. Here we see a nice victory for the RX 6650 XT when it comes to average FPS, but the A770 has a tighter spread between average FPS and 1% lows, which should make it feel a bit smoother overall. The RTX 3050 has the weakest average, but the 1% lows are right there with the others. Either way, that's a large average FPS performance delta, showing the Nvidia here just has a hard time keeping up at 1440p. Horizon Zero Dawn was tested at ultimate quality with no upscaling and revealed an inverse story on the A770 and the RX 6650 XT. The A770 has a bit of a lead on the average FPS, but make note of the tight range between the average FPS and the 1% lows on the RX 6650 XT. The RTX 3050 once again has a hard time keeping up and is well below the other two in performance all around. Tiny Tina's Wonderland was tested at badass settings and once again flips the script on the A770 and the RX 6650 XT. This is becoming amusing, but makes for a very interesting debate on the two cards as basically are hitting the same 1% lows. The RTX 3050 barely shows up to play here in comparison, but does maintain those tight average FPS to 1% low numbers, so take that for what you will. Forspoken at high with RT off reveals a high point for the A770, where it's miles ahead of the RX 6650 XT and the RTX 3050. This RX 6650 XT and RTX 3050 for the first time are quite comparable in this title, and honestly it's something I wasn't expecting to see. Not sure why those 1% lows are so horrible across the board though. Gordon chalks this one up as just being a crappy benchmark. Returnal showcases a similar story when tested at epic settings with ray tracing enabled. The A770 casually strolls way past the competing cards here, likely due to the larger memory bus width. While the RX 6650 XT and the RTX 3050 are showcasing similar performance here, it's impressive to see how well they're holding up with RT enabled. That I didn't expect. Modern Warfare 2 was tested at ultra settings and showcases another big win for the 6650 XT. The A770 is definitely playable, but the RTX 3050 just really isn't a contender at this resolution and settings. Thankfully, no matter which GPU you go with, you'll have access to each vendor's upscaling tech to help out. Modern Warfare 2 is one of the rare titles that I've seen support DLSS, FSR, and XESS, which is a real treat. Assassin's Creed Valhalla was tested at ultra-high settings and showcases another win for the RX 6650 XT. The A770 isn't far behind though, and both leave the RTX 3050 in the dust in this title. And this game has historically been strong for AMD, and that trend continues to bear fruit. Rainbow Six Siege was tested using the Ultra preset, but it defaults to a 50% resolution scaling, so we took that back up to 100 for this test. The winner was clearly the RX 6650 XT, thanks to those strong 1% lows, which is very important in a competitive game like this. The A770 shows high averages, but drops its 1% lows down to the same levels as the RTX 3050. Hitman 3 is a surprisingly strong showcase for the A770, with it carrying itself very highly on the chart here. With this one maxed out and only RT shadows enabled, something ARC cards are able to handle quite well, and it shows. While the RTX 3050 isn't delivering a bad experience here, it is once again well behind the other two. And rounding this out with WatchDogs Legions, it was tested using Ultra preset and RT off. This game really ate up the VRAM on each of these cards and was brutal on the RTX 3050. We're seeing the A770 at over double the 1% lows of the RTX 3050 and delivering better experience than even the RX 6650 XT. Yes, they all have the same 8GB of VRAM to play with, but some have wider buses than others, and that does matter. Well, that was the end of the three-way testing. Some of you may have been wondering how the 8GB variant of the A770 compares to Intel's limited edition version with the 16GB. Well, here's a look at all of the same games, but looking at both ARC cards. And there's some obvious places where the 16GB of VRAM seems to help, like in Cyberpunk 2077, Forspoken, and Returnal. But surprisingly enough, this custom variant actually did better in others. We believe this has to do with the higher clocks and larger cooling on the ASRock card, offering a bit better performance in places where VRAM isn't as important. For $80 cheaper, it's hard to pass up the 8GB version as long as you know its limitations. So if you were looking to spend $270 to $280 of your own money, which would be your best bet? Now each card obviously has strengths and weaknesses and has a lots of performance to offer at 1080p and even 1440p. The Arc A770 is the newest player in the field and was a great showing for its price, pulling in some nice wins, especially around VRAM limited titles. But it's still early days for the Intel GPU and there are a few bugs left to iron out. While the RTX 3050 was the weakest when it comes to average FPSs, it does have surprisingly rock-solid 1% lows and of course other platform advantages like DLSS and Nvidia Broadcast. The 6650 XT has been the go-to recommendation for this price point though, and is a great all-arounder, but it can stumble in the VRAM department. At full MSRP, the conversation obviously shifts a bit, but when found for good deals like this, things become tricky. As it stands with the prices we picked up these cards, we think the MSI RX 6650 XT Mech 2X 8GB OC stands above the rest. That GPU has the most wins, offers a solid feature set, and typically stable drivers. We think there's little you leave off the table with this card, but you'll have to gauge those features for yourself to see whether or not they matter enough to sway your purchasing decision. Now we'd love to hear your take on these results and what graphics card you would personally pick up under $300. Sound off in the comment section below, and while you're down there, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on even more PC hardware and software goodness.